Hello, listeners. Welcome back to FUN-dations for college students. It's Michaela here today, and we actually have the coolest guest ever here today in the studio. Me. Just me. Feels a bit lonely here, but that's because I'm lonely. I'm actually not lonely. I'm actually doing okay. I'm actually doing great. But yeah, I actually wanted to do this one alone, not only because, I'm awesome, but because I wanted to share my teaching experience throughout doing this podcast and taking this class, and how I'm going to put everything that I've learned into my teaching for the future, and do a summative evaluation of myself from the beginning of this semester to the end of this semester. I'm actually very glad that I got the opportunities to teach chapters 9 and 10, because there were so many different ways. There was, I don't really know if there was, a right or wrong way. Well, obviously there was, but, it was just easier, I guess, because we had so many options of what we can do for these lessons, and it was super fun, because it wasn't really us getting involved, but seeing everything that, students were doing was really fun. I'm very glad that we had the opportunity to do this. But back to the summative evaluation, I'm looking back to who I first was when I got here, and everything was just, like I said in the first podcast, so new to me. Literally just got off, the online classes that I was on for, a year and a half, moved 7 hours from home, knew nobody, started, a new life, and it was scary. Walking in to Mason Hall felt, scary, and I was so nervous. I was what if I'm not going to be a good teacher? Everyone else seems, better than me. A lot of comparison, I guess. And, I guess, I was just very closed off. I didn't talk to too many people. But now that I've been going here for a semester, I feel I've opened up a lot more. I still have, issues with, anxiety and stuff, but I know that it'll get easier with time. But yeah, doing, learning the activities through, kinesthetic movement and stuff like that, was easier for me to learn them, and not just from, reading from the book, because reading from the book, I feel I was, soaking in the information, but not as well as experiencing it, because when I was experiencing it in the classroom, I was in the moment, I was doing the activities, and I feel it made everything a lot easier. And this class was definitely, a lot of work, but, I didn't mind. I feel the work was worth it. I feel I'm definitely going to be a better teacher. I was so nervous to teach chapter 9, honestly. I was oh my god, what if I mess up? That's always, my go-to anxiety thought, I'm going to mess up, everyone's going to be oh, Michaela, you're not smart. But after I taught, I felt confident. I just got this, confidence boost, and after, people were oh, your lesson was great and stuff, I was wow, I guess, I'm not as bad as I thought. So I've tried to be lighter on myself with, judging myself. And then, after teaching chapter 10, planning this next lesson, was a lot easier. Planning the review that we're doing this Friday was a lot easier. And I'm just really glad that I've gotten so much out of this class, because when I say FUN-dations, I actually mean it. The class was really fun, and this was the only class, that I went to every single time, because I was this is my future, this is what is important to me. And I'm glad that I honestly really miss this class. I like the people in the class, love the energy in the classroom. It always just makes me, if I'm having a bad day, it usually makes my day, better, and I enjoy it. So now after that little sappy evaluation about how I'm going to miss this class, I'm going to get into today's topic. So we're talking about the creating child, and, yet again, so glad I got to teach this chapter. Children, as I've said prior as well, children love to be creative, and in the classroom, I feel it is definitely very important to incorporate creativity for any kind of lesson. So, the way the children think aloud, the way they communicate through the language of music, I feel it's very, very important to have children compose in the classroom and be able to find new sounds and stuff and making music, and I feel they just have a lot of fun with it. Back when I was in elementary school, I don't really, well, it was so long ago, I don't really remember anything that we did composition-wise, but I know for a fact we definitely did, because looking back on all the chapters I've learned and looking back at how my teacher taught us back in elementary school, she incorporated like almost all the things that pretty much she did include all the things in her teaching that we've talked about here. She was a really great teacher. She taught us a lot of good stuff. Always had a great energy and stuff. She was awesome. But I am definitely almost certain that we did compose something. There's no way we didn't. But yeah, composing in the classroom just has a lot of benefits for the kids musically and cognitively, and doing these activities is super important for them. Teaching this lesson was super fun. I really enjoyed running the charades activity. So fun, right before class, like a way for them to get into what we were going to do today. They were a little easy for them. Like, they were supposed to be for kids, but I guess for college students it was easier to guess like a cat. So for this review lesson, we definitely made them a lot more challenging. Well, not a lot more challenging, but a little bit more. And I'm really excited to see how that goes. I remember specifically from the charades activity that people couldn't guess what one of them was. It was supposed to be a lizard, and they actually guessed like close enough to a lizard, a character from a TV show, Miss Kipling from Jessie, who was the lizard that the little boy had. And it was just really cool to see, like, everybody was saying different answers, but that's like the only one that like I actually remember. And there really was no like wrong or right answer either. Like, there was a right answer, but like how they were seeing it, that was like how they were seeing it, and that was what they thought. And there is a creative process that I should talk about here. So for example, we did the stations and we used the creative process. Stage 1 was giving students the opportunity to explore the sounds and figure out what possibilities they had. And at my station, we did body percussion. So I gave them 1 minute to explore the sounds they could use with either body percussion or mouth sounds. And when they did this, it gave them an opportunity to explore like a range of so many different sound possibilities, and they were able to discover a lot of them. The last group that went up did something very interesting. They did an existing song, but they came up with their own body percussion and mouth sounds for that, and that was really cool. But anyways, after I gave them the minute to explore the sounds, I asked them to each show me something that they came up with. And after they each showed me something that they came up with, I asked them to put the sounds together and make a composition. So the last group did Yeah by Usher with the mouth sounds and the body percussion. And I thought that was super cool that they came up with that, because you can do an existing song, but they did it in their own way where they were able to make like their own sounds and their own vocals to it. Creative freedom is so important to children because it helps them with like the confidence in making musical decisions in the future, and it helps expand their repertoire of what kind of sounds they can make with like their bodies or their mouths or whatever. And that's an example of I guess it's a mix of composition and improvisation. Improvisation is when the children come up with sounds like on the spot. Like they all put something together on the spot, and they need to have a lot of opportunities to improvise throughout their childhood. Free improv, really, really fun activity. I know they have a class here for it. It looks like a lot of fun. But in like doing it in like elementary school, the children are encouraged by their teacher to be able to explore all possibilities with an instrument or their voices. And you can teach this in so many different ways to the children. It really is really amazing with developing the child's imagination and expanding their vocabulary. And there's no wrong or right answer when it comes to improv. Like, you can do whatever you would like when it comes to improv. It's all about the creativity and the expression in the classroom. Now, going back to the composition, when we taught it, we left the creativity to the students and didn't intervene too much. We didn't want to intervene with them because we wanted to leave the creative process up to them. And I think that's definitely something very important when you're teaching composition to children, or even improv. The teacher doesn't really need that much involvement. So to make this possible, we cleared the space in the room so they had a lot of room to work and they had a lot of room to move around. And we gave them instructions and we gave them sources to work with and had them work in small groups of 4 and 1 of 5. And we gave them a time limit that they had to create and explore, and left their limits to what we had for that specific station. So these stations were just a mix of improv and composition together. And then we were able to get their attention for each of them to present, but we didn't intervene with their creative process. We gave them a prompt. We were obviously there if they needed anything, but we didn't be like, oh, you should do it more like this, or you should do it more like this. We left everything up to them, and that I think is how it should be when you're teaching in a classroom. Now, to connect this chapter to how I'm going to teach, I definitely want to do a lot of improv and composition with my students. I think it is a great way for them to learn about music and enjoy music. I really do. There is one specific activity that I really want to do as a teacher. So I know for one of the groups that we had in our lesson, it was popsicle sticks with random objects or people on them, and each of the students got to pick a popsicle stick and they had to compose a story for it. And when you have them compose a story using so many different possibilities of things, the possibilities for the stories could be endless. And I think it's funny to see what kids come up with, because kids come up with funny things. And obviously they have to keep it school appropriate, but I thought that was such a great activity, and I really would love to use that in my classroom. I feel like they'd have so much fun creating with just popsicle sticks with paper people on it or paper objects on it. And I could probably use the same ones and put them in small groups, and each of them would still come up with the same story. Even though they have the same popsicle sticks, they would still come up with a totally different story because everyone's brain thinks differently. I remember back in, I think it was last month, we were assigned a different topic, and we were given a specific group of objects to use as instruments. One of them was metal. We had to do ours off of an image. Another one of them was paper. And when we did these compositions, we had them listen for it. We didn't have the class look at what we were doing, but we had them listen. And everybody heard something different. We did the circus, and everybody thought it was like a medieval times war, and they heard the horse going across the ground. But we didn't really have, I don't think we did have a horse. We had an elephant because it was the circus. We had a cannonball. We had the little flames from the cannon that went I can't really make the sound for the listeners to hear, but it was just really cool that people came up with something different. I remember actually Clam's activity that they did for Cinderella, and I thought it was something really dark, I'm not even gonna lie, but it wasn't. It was Cinderella, which I guess no, it's not really a dark story. So I'm just very glad that we got to teach this lesson. And yeah, so this concludes my FUN-dations podcast. I know it's pretty sad. The coolest podcast here on YouTube or Spotify or whichever platform you're listening to this on. Thank you for listening. I hope that you enjoyed listening to all 12 of these, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your night.